Hi everybody, we're going to be learning about volume and capacity over the next 2 weeks, and this week we are focusing on capacity. So, to begin, on your first day, we're going to learn about what capacity is. So, capacity is how much a container can hold. In year 2, we are measuring capacity using informal units, which means like a smaller container, which could be a smaller cup. We're not measuring using millilitres or litres in year 2. That will come later. So we're using informal units such as different sized containers to measure capacity. Let's read this story. This week we are going to be learning about capacity, and capacity is the amount of space a container can hold. So if it's empty or if it's full, it's still the space. Have you ever played with damp sand packed into a pail, a bucket, and made a sandcastle? Why does the sand take the shape of the bucket? A water bottle, a jar, a thimble, a cup, and a pail or a bucket are all containers. Containers hold things. Inside a container, there is space. The space inside a container can hold solids, liquids, or even just air. Here are some containers. If you filled each of them with water, can you guess which one would hold the most and which one would hold the least? Sometimes it's easy to guess which container will hold the most water when they are different sizes. It is much more difficult to guess when the containers look almost the same, like these cups. Guessing can be difficult. Which of these two containers holds the most? We must measure to find out. Pour water from a jug into the dish. What does this tell you? Now collect some empty containers. How can you tell which one will hold the most water and which one will hold the least? We do not have to use water. We could use sand or marbles instead. You can see the sand fills up all the space in the glass. Do the marbles fill up all the space? I can see lots of spaces in between the marbles, so it doesn't fill up the whole space. Standard measurements, which means those measurements you see on measuring cups, like litres and millilitres, or on measuring spoons, they are important. The ingredients for a cake have to be mixed in the right quantities, the right amounts. Garden fertilizers have to be carefully measured as well. Even the amount of medicines that we take must be measured carefully when they are made and when we take them. Standard measures help us to measure exactly. When a driver buys a gallon or a litre of gasoline, she knows exactly how much she will get wherever she buys it. The gasoline runs from the pump into the car's gas tank. When the tank is full, it will hold no more gas. Capacity is the word used to describe the most a container will hold. Some containers are very large. This tanker holds many gallons, or we would call it litres, and these drums hold chemicals. I wonder which container has the greatest capacity, a tanker or a drum? Being able to measure capacity is important. What might happen to this ship if too much coal was loaded onto it? It might sink because it'll be too much. What might happen to this reservoir if too much water went into it? Well, it will probably flood all those houses. Capacity is not the same as weight. This is really important. The pasta fills this jar on the left, and so does the water. Which one do you think is the heaviest or heavier? Capacity is a word we use to describe space, even when the space is empty. I want you to pay attention to this. Capacity is a word that we use to describe space, even when the space is empty. So the capacity of this tray with the strawberries inside is exactly the same as when it is empty. If my water bottle is full, it still has the same capacity as when it is empty. Capacity is the amount of space a container can hold. So that was a little VIP on what capacity is. Next week, we'll be looking at volume, which is when you fill a container
a little bit, that amount that you have put in the container is the volume. But just so you know, we're going to be focusing on capacity this week. And for the first task, it is that we are learning to make a device to measure capacity. So you can see the task here, and I'm going to go through this in detail in the next video. So please look out for what's happening next. Once you have finished looking at that, there is a check understanding question to think about after you finish the first task. Which mug is half full?
Alrighty, boys and girls, today's task is asking us to make a device to measure capacity. Please make sure you check the VIP slide to see what capacity is. Miss Krystle made a measuring device using a cup to fill a larger container. Each time she added a cup of water to the container, she made a mark on the side to show the water level changing. How many cups, I wonder, might the container hold? The first step is to choose a cup and a container, boys and girls. So here I am. I have got a little cup and a bigger container. Now, please get your parents' permission with whatever materials you're using. And I also have got a whiteboard marker to mark on my container so I can rub it off straight away. Please just check with your parents if you're allowed to maybe use a recycled container, maybe a container that you've used for juice or something that's been finished, like a takeaway container. If you're not allowed, if you don't have a whiteboard marker and you're not allowed to use a marker on your parents' container. So just get permission. So I've got my first step done. And so my second step says to then pour 1 cup of water into the container and mark the water level. So I've got my materials here. I've got a bigger container of water. So you might want to do this in the kitchen or in the bathtub or outside in the backyard so you don't make a mess. But I've got a microfiber towel just underneath so I don't get anything wet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my smaller cup and I'm going to fill it to the top and I'm going to pour it in. So once I've poured that in once, I'm going to mark where that water level comes up to. Let me do that first, and then I will show you. I'll come a bit closer. So, it's a bit hard to see, but the water level comes up to here, and I made a mark. So when you make your mark, you can then count those later. Because I can't see that very clearly, I could also use a permanent marker, but you might not have permission to do that. Okay. So there we go. You can see the first one. We're making a measuring device using this bigger container and the smaller one. So that's 1 cup. And I'm going to keep doing that. So I have to fill my cup as much as possible to the top. Pour it in. 2 cups. You need to get down on eye level so that you can see that happening. 2, you see the water rising. 3, now I need to get down on eye level again, and I need to wait for the water to settle, and then I'm going to make my mark so that you can see it's got 3 marks there so far. So that's 3 cups. 3 cups. But I want to find the capacity of the whole container. 3, 4, 5, make sure, because when I filled my cup the second time, it's not quite full. So maybe if I might need to fill that up again. I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to pause this and I'm going to come back to you once I've filled my cup, my container. So far I want to show you my progress. I've just skipped ahead and you can see that I have made my marks all the way up to here. So far I've gotten almost halfway through. I'm going to also number them, but I will get back to you as well once I get through. Alrighty, boys and girls, I'm back and my container is filled to the very top. I cannot move it closer to you, otherwise I'll make a big mess of water everywhere. But so I have made the marks all the way to the top. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the next success criteria, which is to write a number next to each mark to show how many cups. So this is why it's a good idea that you do this near a sink or outside on where you're able to make a bit of mess, or in the bathtub, because you will spill a little bit of water. I'm going to come back to you and show you how I make the numbers marked along the measuring device I've made. Alrighty, boys and girls, now can you see how I have added the numbers all the way to the top? 1, and I found out it filled, the capacity of this container was 20 cups. Now, I wonder if you might think if the capacity would be the same if I measured using this cup instead of this cup. So have a think about the capacity of your container. Have a think about how big the container that you're using. You might want to use a smaller container so that you're not there forever making your measurements. But this is my measuring device and I'm going to hold on to this because I might use it in the next task. And just as a challenge, it says to check whether the marks are equally spaced apart and explain why. So you can notice, if you look really carefully, that when I get towards the top, the marks are not exactly evenly spaced as much as possible as the rest of the marks. I wonder if you can think about why the marks change towards the top of my container. I'm not going to tell you the answer because I want you to figure that out. Happy measuring, boys and girls.
So the second task is that we are learning to use this measuring device to measure capacity. So the task is I used my measuring device to measure the capacity of lots of different containers. I filled each container with water, tipped it into my measuring device, and recorded the capacity. What might be the capacity of each container? I'm going to go through each of these success criteria in the video. But once you finish watching the next part, I'd like you to come back to this check understanding question later. I filled a container and poured water into this measuring device. What was the capacity of the container? Looking at the water in the measuring device and what is it up to? What's the level up to? So watch that video that's coming up next, and then you can come back to this check understanding question to see if what you think is the answer is the same answer after the lesson.
Alrighty, boys and girls, today we are going to use the measuring device that we created yesterday to measure capacity. If you already rubbed out all the numbers on that one, then you might need to make another smaller measuring device today. So the task says, I use my measuring device to measure the capacity of lots of different containers. I filled each container with water, tipped into my measuring device, and recorded the capacity. That's really important. You're going to put water in your containers, then you're going to pour that into your measuring device. I wonder what might be the capacity of each container. The first step is to choose some containers. It's up to you how many you choose. I have got some containers here of different sizes. You need to make sure you take off the lid before you measure. So, I've got my little container of water and I've got my container. So, the second step is to fill a container with water and carefully pour the water into my measuring device. Here is my trusty measuring device from yesterday with all the numbers, And I'm going to use that to measure capacity. So I'm going to start with this blue container here. I'm going to fill it with water. It doesn't quite fill to the top, so sometimes I get another container to pour on top. And now I'm going to carefully pour it into my measuring device. See, a little bit of water will splash, boys and girls, so you need to be careful and slow. And then you can see on my measuring device that it is, it's reached 1 cup. So you have to probably keep it still on a level device, come down at eye level. And actually, I was wrong when I was holding it up, because when it's now on the table, I can see it's 2 cups. Now, it's really important that you record this, boys and girls. So on my post-it note, I'm going to write blue, this pen, blue is 2 cups. So then I can put my post-it note next to the blue container. So then my next container, I'm going to measure is this cylinder one here. So I'm going to fill it up to the very top. There we go. And now I need to carefully pour this water into my measuring device. Alrighty, let's have a look. Now, you can see that I'm going to come down on eye level, and I'm just going to wait for the water to still because it's moving a little bit, and it's almost 11 cups. So this container here, I'm going to get my post-it note because I need to record. It's very important. And I'm going to say cylinder, 11 cups. I'm going to say big cylinder because there's 2 cylinder ones here. And I'm going to put my post-it note there for that measurement. Now I need to do my other measurements. I'm going to pour this water back in to my bigger container. Now I'm going to measure the pink bowl. So I've got to fill that up. I've got a bit of water falling out. All right, hold it still and carefully, as much as possible, pour it in. If there's room for spillage, and that's not really, it's hard to be very accurate with this, isn't it? So now let's get on eye level and see. It's in the middle of 3 and 4, boys and girls. So what's that? 3.5 cups for my pink bowl. I'm going to pour that water back in. 3.5 cups. Got to write that down. Pink bowl, 3.5 cups. And I'm going to put that on. I'm going to put that note there. So I've measured my 3 containers so far. Let's measure 1 more. I'm going to measure this container here. So I need to fill the container up. That's Macy. Can you hear her? She's digging. Alrighty. Alrighty, so I'm going to fill it to the top. Now this is going to be tricky. Alrighty, let's have a look at how many cups that is. It's got to get down on eye level, and it's in the middle of 9 and 10. So 9.5 cups. So I have measured my 1, 2, 3, 4 containers using my trusty measuring device. Let's have a look at what the next step is. Use the marks on the measuring device to find and record the capacity. After, estimate and measure the capacity of the containers and record the results. So, estimate and measure the capacity. So, I've used my measuring device to measure capacity, and so I then might look at some other containers such as this container here, and I now need to estimate by guessing, making a good guess of the capacity of this container if I were to measure it using my measuring device. So I estimate, I estimate that this will be 4 cups capacity, and I might find another container, and I estimate that this is going to be 6 cups. And then I have to check by recording the results. So what I'm going to do is I thought this would be 6 cups. Let me just check. So I'm going to now check by pouring water to the full capacity of this container and then pouring it into my measuring device. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I actually did not measure that before. It is 6 cups. My estimation was correct. 6. So I measured that one. But what about the other one, the small one, which I thought was 4 cups? Let me have a look. Let me fill that cup up to its full capacity. Empty my measuring device. Empty, make sure it's at the top. All right, I'm gonna check. I was wrong, it's 5. So I estimated 4 cups, but it was 5 cups capacity for this smaller cylinder container. So that's the task for today, boys and girls. And the challenge is to find 2 containers where one has half the capacity of the other. Happy measuring!
This is the last day of focusing on capacity. So I want to bring your attention to this very important point of revising what comparing and ordering means. First of all, we know that capacity is used to measure how much an object can maximally hold. So the very most a container can hold is the capacity. And we can compare capacities using a range of containers using the words more than and less than, or least and most. So on the right, you can see that it says more than, less than capacity. Pour water from each object below to compare their capacity. And you can see where the ice cream tub holds more than the plastic cup because it's bigger. And the plastic cups holds less than a water bottle. If you were to pour the water into the cup, it would be there would still be water in the bottle. And when we order, it can be organized from the most to the least capacity or the other way around. So if I want to order these 3 objects according to their capacity, I can put the ice cream tub as holding the most and the cup holding the least amount. It's very important that you notice which holds the most by measuring and which holds the least by measuring and putting them in order. So the task today is to compare and order capacity. And Miss Krystle had some containers and she cannot tell which one holds the most just by looking at them. I wonder how she might use her measuring device to compare the capacities of the containers. I'm going to go through these steps in a minute. Once you have finished going through those steps, I'd like you to come back to this check understanding question and think about what the answer could be after you've finished the lesson.
Alrighty, boys and girls, the task today is to compare and order capacity. Please make sure that you check the VIP slide to understand what comparing and ordering means. Miss Krystle has some containers. She cannot tell which one holds the most just by looking. How might she use her measuring device to compare the capacities of the containers? So the first step is to choose some containers again. It's up to you how many you choose. Then you need to make a good guess of which container will hold the most capacity. Then you use your measuring device to measure and record the capacity of each container. So please watch my video from yesterday, in yesterday's launch task for maths, because I've done this step already, but I didn't do the prediction. So you need to do the prediction first. And then you're going to draw and label a picture of the containers, and they need to be ordered from in capacity. So let's have a look at my containers yesterday. Now, I have got these containers. So I had the blue, the big cylinder, the pink cup, the rectangular one, the squarish one, and the smaller rectangle one. And I labeled the capacity of each cup. So give me a second. Going to turn this around because I'm going to show you now how to order it. So I've got 2 cups, 11 cups, 3.5, 9.5, 6 cups, and 5 cups. So now the least amount was 2 cups. So I'm going to leave that one there. That's the least amount. Then I'm going to swap this around. I'm going to put my 3.5 cup measurement there. This one's 11 cups, it's a bit more, so I'm going to put that over there. So I've got 9, 6, and 5. Which one would be next? The smallest number is, you're right, 5. So I'm going to put that there. And then I've got 9.5, 6, and 11. So I've got to put the 6 first. Then 9.5. And then my 11 cups. So there you have it. I have ordered my containers from least to most. I could order it the other way and have from most to least as well. So that step's done. For the last step of drawing and labeling the picture, here is an example of how I've drawn the least to the most and labeled how many cups below. I just wanted to show you how to rub out the marks on a container. You can use a whiteboard marker and you just go over the top of the texture, then get a tissue and then rub it out. So you get your whiteboard marker, and then you go over it, and then you get a tissue and you wipe it, and then it's gone. So if you did use permanent marker and you have a whiteboard marker, you can easily rub that out if you don't have a magic eraser.